Compost tea, starting with a bunch of water. I'm using collected water and big bucket. Bag of compost. This is just from my compost bin. It's unsifted, just chunks. Unsulfured blackstrap molasses. I'm gonna do a little more. Some food for your brew. Whoops. I'm not using a clean cheesecloth bag or a clean bucket, and I think that's fine. But how can I complicate it? Well, I can add more stuff to it. I make this in a mini batch all the time for my houseplants. Depending on what you're choosing to supplement, you can add any sort of dry plant amendment, bat guano, bone meal. Kelp meal is a good one. You can use a lot. It's pretty cheap. Good idea to add some salt. This is langbeinite. You can use Epsom salt. Just a bit. This is a humic acid with potassium. Just add some. Bone meal I'll probably just use as a top dress. Bat guano, you don't want to go too hard with it. But all of this stuff can just be top dress, so if you want to have a more precise amendment regimen for each plant, just add it around the base of the plant instead of adding it to this, because this will be diluted and watered over everything in equal measurements. So if you have more specific needs, you can accommodate. Maybe you don't need all that much potassium if something's never going to flower, if you just want greenery production. One thing about compost tea, cabbages are not receptive, so I don't put it on my cabbages. It's good, still good for the soil, so you're not going to hurt anything, but if all you're growing is cabbage, maybe don't. I'll fill this up the rest of the way. Not completely full. So what did I add? Bat guano, sprinklings of humic acid, touch of langbeinite, good amount of kelp meal, and a healthy glug of blackstrap molasses. And now this will just develop over time. This isn't a lengthy process really. You just want to leave it for anywhere between 12 to 24 hours. So the timing of the ferment is somewhat critical because you don't want it to do too long or it changes the bacteria developed in this mixture. So if you leave it a long time, it can be beneficial for plants that are long-term growth like trees or perennials. But if you're growing annuals, a shorter fermentation time is adequate. You don't need to go beyond that. You're just popping in some available bacteria the plant can access rapidly. It's not breaking anything down. It's the bacteria in the compost tea in the soil delivering nutrients to your plant. If you look into this a little further, it's extensive and I'm not an expert, so I would refer you to Elaine Ingham or Jeff Lowenfels. They have literature that would do a way better job explaining it than me. But if you're just looking for the how-to, this is how-to, and you aren't going to hurt anything by doing this. And it's pretty low investment. Obviously, this collection of amendments is expensive, but you can do this with just molasses and compost and water and thyme. Don't feel obligated to complicate things. If you grow compost tea on your soil, you're going to get something from it. It's not a waste. Use it at your own discretion, I guess. If you don't want to waste your time with it, don't do it. It's fine. No one's going to be mad. So now, we take this, and easy, low effort method is to come out every hour or so and give it a good stir. You want to keep it aerated. But if you're like me and you're just going to abandon this for the afternoon and come back to it later, then borrow a pump. And keep it aerated this way. You want to at least stir up the surface frequently, incorporating air into this, because if it's not an aerobic broth, then you're not going to get quite as many bacteria brewing in this thing. It needs air to process, and using a pump or some sort of circulator is your best bet, but don't feel compelled to. When I make it on the countertop, I just have a little jar and I stir it up every time I walk by. But for big scale like this, just check on it as much as you can. It's really not going to make or break your whole thing, but if you're going to the effort, you might as well give it all you can. So I'll be back to check on this one in a while. It's in the shade here. I don't have to worry about it getting too much sun. You will want it to stay in a somewhat dark environment and somewhere where your dog's not going to get into it, so I'll have to monitor her while it's out here. But that's it for now. We'll check in on it later. Annie, you want to check the pump? Hey girl, you're done. It stinks. So this, I'm gonna top dress with, but I'll let it strain out a while. And just like with LAB, you want to treat your beds with this after it's been watered. We had some rain recently. Great time to add any bacterial amendments, and not in the daytime, not when there's going to be a lot of direct heat. I don't really have a choice because today I'm leaving, so now or never. So I'm gonna, just have to make with what I got as far as time goes. So I filled this. Here's what I got, and it's so stinky. I do about a jar for each one, just because I want to make sure I have enough to spread throughout the rest of my gardens. So I'm just going to throw it everywhere. Good heavy soaking on damp soil. I do it in the ground. I do it in pots. And since I made this one sort of neutral, I don't have to worry about what stage each plant is in. I'm just kind of doctoring up the soil. So, one If it was a lot wetter, like if I had done a heavy watering on my beds, I would feel comfortable just throwing this on top of the beds after, but they're not super wet right now, so I think mixing it just so it is going to be distributed well. Safer for right now. Safer. There's no danger in any of it. If it's less effective, it's not going to hurt anything, but maximizing efficiency is the goal, and compromises must be made sometimes. So, yeah, this is direct sun, and it will be for the next few hours, so not perfect conditions. I do this probably once a month. This is my first of the year, so I've been slacking, but that's okay. Things still look fine. Since I do the LAB treatments, it's not like this is completely dead soil. I'm doing my best to keep it topped off. So like I said, this does not work for brassicas, but I don't just have brassicas growing here, so I think it's worth treating the bed and for anything in my fall crops that I have planned. I just want to get the soil in good shape and maintain it in good shape for things moving ahead. But that's it. It's very cheap to make if you want it to be. Very simple if you choose it to be. I would consider entry level if you don't want to get very complicated about it and you don't want to understand all of the process behind it, which is fine. I'm not an expert, but I do enjoy the process and I can see benefits in it just in my own experience. Without writing a book, I still feel confident to say, give it a shot. What do you have to lose? If it's too much to risk, don't do it. If it's not your vibe, that's fine. But this is what works for me. I try to keep things as low effort as possible around here. So throwing this in with top dressing, with compost, and LAB is essentially all of my upkeep regimen. You don't have to really complicate things if you have a high tolerance for imperfection. Anyway, hope it helps. Let me know if you have any other easy, helpful, controversial feedings regimens. Like to hear it. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you next time.